Hi, welcome to this, I want to say special, but welcome to this FoodSense weekly webinar. So we like to do this weekly webinar and it's really answering technical questions that have come in during the week. So let me jump straight into it and just say, we're talking about FoodSense today. I've got a FoodSense actually in front of me, so it won't all be talk. I do have some samples in front of me and I will be doing, as I say, some actual testing. Now what I want to do is just quickly jump back to the slides here and just say, okay, we're talking about FoodSense. There will be some real work going on here. Just a couple of questions or a couple of comments. This weekly webinar is basically a sort of, I don't want to sort of say service, but it is free support that we provide to users of FoodSense. This week I'll be dealing with caffeine and with capsaicin. And if you've got technical questions and you're a user of the system, then we're here to help. One of the things is I just want to say is if people have just recently received their FoodSense, you may not have been upgraded to a premium Djuli account. If that's not clear to you what that means, I'll maybe explain that in a bit. I just want to talk about putting samples onto sensors. We did get some images this week and somebody was asking, am I putting the sample in the right place? And the quick answer is you are. But I'm also going to do a demonstration in a minute as well, so that may be helping you as well. Somebody else who's thinking about onboarding as a client wants to know about the cost of test, and I'm going to specifically focus on Chilli there. And let me just go back to here. And then somebody else going from milligrams to ppm, parts per million. I realize it's just times by 1,000. I hope that's correct. But I just want to make some comments on that before I dive into that in a minute. And also want to talk about, I will be providing support this afternoon to various clients, but it's probably also worth knowing that, for example, somebody in Taiwan, English is a second language to them, so there we've actually provided bilingual video in that particular case. Let me jump into this a little bit more and just say that, the way this technology works is with FoodSense Generation 4, we have a sensor. We put a sample on the sensor. The app knows what to do because of the QR codes that we provide. So if it's a Chilli sample, there'll be a Chilli sample going on there. We'll run the analysis and we send the data up to the cloud and we process it and we send information back to the app. Now, the reason I bring this up is because there are premier features that anyone who's received a FoodSense Generation 4 in the last month or so, there's a premier account that you are entitled to. If you haven't got it, contact us because you'll see me using the premier features shortly. It's the same for caffeine as well. If you're a new user on the caffeine system, just know that there's a QR code for the caffeine people, but also just know that all your data is essentially going up to the cloud. And it's really useful because it really helps understand for us at ZP what's going on. So again, if you're a new user for FoodSense Generation 4 in the last few months, you are entitled to a Premier account, and that will allow you to have extra features, but also to see the raw data as well. In fact, I think I've got a slide on that in a minute. I am going to do a demonstration shortly as well. So in this demonstration, I'll be kind of covering the idea of upgrading to a Premier Djuli. As I say, if you are a recent receiver of a FoodSense Generation 4, you're entitled to it. Putting samples onto sensors, that will also become quite clear in this particular demo. And also, I'll then probably go into the cost of testing chilies. Just on that premium account, it's probably just worth saying that with a premium account, you get results on phone. With the freemium account, you get results on phone only. You can export data and reports. You can also look at raw signal in the premium account. You can save values in the premium account. You can do comparison reports in the premium account. We can also see the dilution or how the sample is actually prepared in that report. We can see the time, the date, and the operator. So the premium account does give essentially all of this, whereas the freemium account only gives results on phone. And getting and seeing the raw data is a really important for ZP because the raw data is literally telling us about the molecules, either capsaicin or either capsaicin or caffeine. Now what I want to do is actually I want to just do a quick demonstration. So let me just go to my what I want to do is I'm going to just do a quick chili demonstration, and what I will do is I will just put that there. I will grab a chili sensor, which I'm doing. I realize we need to start color coding our sensors because otherwise they're all going to look the same. But let me just put the chili sensor there. Let me grab a chili sample, which I am doing. I realize I need a clean pipette, and I will put the sample onto the sensor. Now, what I'm going to make a point of doing is just making sure that one of the questions in was, covering this kind of part of the sensor here. It's 50 microliters. I think there is actually an image of this, hopefully in the manual as well. I've got a manual here. I might just have a quick look. Yeah, I think the manual does actually show that as well. So the manual is quite comprehensive, at least for the chili people. Right, so I put the sample on there. I should have really been a little bit, I should have kind of run that sample effectively. So at the moment, my app is in its caffeine mode. So I need to just go into chili mode, which I have now done. I am connected to the device. I do have a chili sample on there. I might just give this a quick name, which will be tab. I'll just call it tab 3. It's just something I can basically find in a minute, and then I'm essentially off. So it's grabbing the data in real time now. I might just do a little bit of tidy up here, and it's running that sample and grabbing the data. Now what it will do is put the data up into the cloud. Now I've got kind of 3 questions I'm answering here. Where to put the sample, how much does it cost per test, and I'm particularly answering that on the chili, let's say, part, and also answering about these kind of premium features that we do have in Djuli. Now, so I'm just going to open up Djuli on my screen here. If I just share the screen here and just turn on this here. So, in fact, I've just got results on my phone. So let me just share that with you by going to here. This will give you the best view. So I've got a result on my phone. So that's a kind of nice, so that's a nice, easy thing. But the point about real world samples are much more complicated than, well, real world samples are complicated. There's lots of unknowns about them, and that's why at ZP we make a real point of gathering the raw signal as well. So what I'll do is I'll just go to here. I'm just going to do a refresh here, which I'm doing, and then I can see the data has come in. Now really I'm taking, at this point now, I'm sort of taking benefit from the premium version of Djuli. If you've just received your FoodSense Generation 4 and you don't realize there's a premium account for Djuli and you haven't reached out to us, then you probably don't have it. But it is good to get into the habit of looking at this really quickly on. So there's my tab 3, that's what I named it as. Here's my date and time, and this starts giving me some useful information. So this gives me the raw signal. See, so if you're used to watching videos from Zimmer and Peacock, you'll know that we call this kind of peak 1, peak 2, and peak 3 for capsaicin. And they're kind of well formed. You can understand that's a really distinctive fingerprint. You can also appreciate this when I do some caffeine results shortly. Now what we've done here is we've got the number. So the number is, so one of the premium features is the number is saved to the cloud, and I've also got the raw signal. If I so wish, I can export the raw data. I can also export a report. So these are some premium features. I think the premium features are all the data saved, all the operator who did the features is also saved. The number is saved and the raw signal is saved. This is important when either you're troubleshooting, or let's say somebody's kind of come back and said, oh well, that capsaicin, that chili is not what you say it is. At least you have this evidence that actually it is. On the freemium account, which you would just literally have the number. So if you're looking at numbers, please understand that there is a system called Djuli that you can log into and actually look at the raw signal. If you're not using it, reach out to me and get yourself upgraded. We did have somebody who's just received the Caffeine system, and we have upgraded them to the premium, and that will become important in a minute. So premium gives you a lot more transparency on what's going on the system. Now what I want to do now is talk about economics a little bit. So this is strictly speaking on so I just did a test, and in fact in that test I'd actually taken 0.1 mils of the sample and diluted it with 0.9 mils of the buffer, which meant that the consumables, the pipette tip, I just estimated this is like 1 cent, 1 euro cent per pipette tip. Just so we're very clear, that's not 1 euro, that's 1 euro cent, so 1/100th of a euro, if I can use that. The buffer that we used cost for that 900 mils was 46 cents. So you can appreciate that 1 cent plus 46 cents is 47 cents. And then the sensors are €3.50 each. So you get a pack of 100 in the starter kit. So if I add 47 cents to €3.50, then it's €3.97. Sorry, it's 3.97 euros per test. So that's the economics of test. So I wanted to cover 3 things in that particular demo. The 3 things were where to put the sample, which again I've done, and it was in line with, and it's also in the manual, and it's also in line with the photo that's sent. I also wanted to say, if you're recently received your FoodSense Generation 4 and you're not using Djuli, then you can use Djuli. And by the way, you need the premium account, and if you don't think you've got the premium account, let me know. We've just upgraded somebody just today who'd received but wasn't on the premium account. And then for your economics, just know it's €3.97 per test. Okay, question number 4. Right, so question number 4 is really about so far we've been testing things like, I'm just gonna grab this. We've been testing this is all about caffeine, so sort of caffeinated products like this. This is a caffeine sensor as opposed to an exclusively coffee sensor. There's a difference because we're trying to understand the caffeine in many samples, and I realize that, but we're going to do it sort of starting off with the more traditional caffeinated materials like coffee is obvious, and also tea. But the way we're expecting to run this is it's 50 milligrams of the coffee or 50 milligrams of the tea leaves. I'm being very specific here. And I suppose the reason I'm being specific is I'll give you a quick demonstration in a minute. But that's diluted in 1 ml of buffer. So that's the way we're expecting people to do sample preparation. I'm being very particular because at this moment we haven't started validating energy drinks. In fact, we have been buying them, but we have not done the science. So we'd love to get into energy drinks, and but we have not done the science. So the only sort of samples that we're supporting at this moment would be the more traditional hot beverages, for example, coffee and tea. But I wouldn't call this a coffee sensor, and I wouldn't call this a tea sensor. This is a caffeine sensor that can be used, that we're using in those matrices. But in order to prepare the sample, it's not brew the tea and then take a bit of the tea and put it into the buffer. It's actually weigh out the tea leaves. And I suppose that's something that I have been definitely, this is something that I use quite a lot when preparing these samples. is a vortexer like this. In fact, I might just change the screen a little bit. Let me just go to external camera. This vortexer, you can buy these vortexers off Amazon. It's economical to buy them off Amazon, otherwise they're shipping all around the world and they're heavy enough, so it's better to buy them just straight off Amazon. These are important because they really allow for extraction. I mean, they're not that expensive. They're about, I think, about $100 maybe, and then it vibrates like crazy, and it really shakes up and helps with the extraction. So just to be very clear, the workflow is it's 50 milligrams per 1 ml of buffer. I just want to do a quick discussion, see, because you could say, well, what, why can't we test these energy drinks, and why can't, for example, that or this more also very famous energy drink, why can we not test those? The reason being is that this is a point of need device. I'm going to show you the kind of grandfather of point of need devices now. So I'll pull out this glucose sensor. Right. This glucose sensor, you will notice that a lot of the features of these kind of glucose strips are really similar to what happens in the FoodSense Generation 4. So that's on, and I'll just get the sample. Maybe I should have pushed a bit harder. Now the reason I do that is because this meter will give you a measurement of blood, and I got 106 milligrams per DL. Now the reason I bring that up is because it's designed to work with blood. So it's got a very specific kind of workflow. Prick your finger, put a drop of blood on there, get your result. So at this moment, we've been validating around samples like this. What we have not been validating around samples like this. And it's not that you can't just assume that, that glucose strip will work in urine. That glucose strip, for example, works in blood. So we're in the same sort of situation as well, that we're not yet supporting caffeinated drinks because we haven't done enough validation in our laboratory. So I just want to say that I'm not at this moment able to support caffeinated drinks because we haven't done enough of our own science in order to essentially validate that. Right, now I'll just go back to my slides and it'll remind me what I'm doing. So at the moment, the workflow that we have is take 50 milligrams of the tea leaf or the the coffee, and put it in 1 ml of buffer. So that's basically putting a powder, let's say, or solid, into 1 ml of buffer, and then vortexing it on that vortex that I showed earlier on. So I just want to do a demo, and then I'll probably talk about milligrams per gram to ppm. So let me just do a demonstration. So I'll go back to screen. I'll go back to here. Just take that out. As I say, we do need to start color coding these sensors because otherwise I will get confused myself. But let me just grab one of these. Right, I'll do that. The workflow is similar enough to the workflow earlier on. So I'm just going to grab the sample. All right, done. Oh, I realize I'm going to have to scan the QR code because I'm in the wrong mode at the moment. So I just need to get it out with this Chilli sensor mode and into the caffeine sensing mode. So I will just call call this caffeine. Right, so I've got that on there, and I will think aloud a little bit. Right, so I've prepared it the way it says here. I've put 50 milligrams in 1 mil, because that's doing like 1 in 20 dilution. I will just hit start measurement, and off it goes. So it is doing, it's a different sensor, different assay, and you will obviously get a very different looking result. But the reason I kind of was talking about Djuli quite so much earlier on is because it's not the numbers are useful to us, but I actually want to show you that I'm getting a lot of information out of the raw signal as well. So the nice thing about this Djuli system is all the data is essentially sent to the cloud. So I'm just navigating to the Djuli backend here, and then when that's completed, I will get the results up here. So let me just share my screen here, and I've got that going there. So I've got my result. So I'm going to hold my result up here. In fact, I may even make this a bit clearer here. So I've got my result. Just out of interest, if you want to go from milligrams to grams, and you want to go into ppm, parts per million, just times by 1,000. I know it seems a bit ridiculous that I would take 108, but it's not ridiculous. Parts per million is almost micrograms per gram, whereas milligrams is obviously, sorry, not obviously, but it is milligrams per gram, whereas parts per million is actually micrograms per gram. So to go from micrograms to milligrams, to go from milligrams rather to micrograms, it's just times by 1,000. So if you want to turn that number into ppm, I'm sorry it's so bleached out. If you want to turn that number into ppm, then that's 108. Now what does that mean? That means in a gram of this, it's 108 milligrams of caffeine. Now what I want to say is as well is it's the same for, let's say, tea. If you weigh out the 50 milligrams of tea and dilute it in the 1 ml of buffer, what the meter will give you is the grams of caffeine in 1 gram of the tea. I actually am a chemist, so I can work out then, you know, what is that milligrams per let's say per cup of tea or per cup of coffee, because I can then just distribute it among the volume. But understand that what we're calculating is how many grams of caffeine, sorry, I should say how many milligrams of caffeine are in 1 gram of coffee, or how many milligrams of caffeine there are in 1 gram of tea leaves. It's not the same as the beverage itself, but you can calculate then what it should be in the beverage. Now what I want to do is I just want to share the screen for a second and just do a quick refresh so that I can see my caffeine signal. There it is there. Now this will look very different if you're watching this video. This will look very different from the capsaicin earlier on. Yeah, there we go. There's a very distinct peak here. This is nothing like, as you could appreciate, the capsaicin earlier on. There's that distinct peak there. So this distinct peak here is the caffeine peak. The reason this is important is because when I'm trying to troubleshoot and somebody's saying to me, help, you know, this is the number. Actually, what's more informative for me is not the number. It's actually the raw signal. So I know it sounds, you know, crazy, but we're literally looking at the molecule here. I can sort of demonstrate to you that because I've got a decaf sample here, for example. So I'll just pull that up. If you look at the decaf sample, it is flat here. That is flat. If I just look to the sample here, so when I'm looking at numbers, especially on things like, you know, tea, etc., I really want to see the raw signal. That's what really informs me what's going on. Also be careful over the next few days if you are using the FoodSense Generation 4. It is Christmas Eve today, it is Christmas tomorrow, so there will be definitely less support over the next few days. But I just want to say that in order to run at the moment the caffeine, we want 50 milligrams of the solid sample, suspended in 1 ml of the buffer, vortexed. I think I'm always very clear in many videos. If you watch back over the years, I'm always vortexing. That really helps with extraction. Vortexes are not expensive. It's just the other way of doing it is to do this. But you're just never going to get the thousands of vibrations per second that a vortexer can produce. And then what I'm really interested in is the actual raw signal. I just want to go back to one of the kind of premium features then of Djuli. If I just go in here, I can choose this, and actually I can share report, even though it says sort of incomplete, but really I should be able to really be able to share it. In fact, yeah, if you grab this, so for example, if you grab this and send me that URL, that means I should possibly be able to get in there and see the raw signal. But for technical support, and I do this quite a lot, I do give a lot of technical support on this channel, it's the raw signal. And by the way, I suppose I should say that you can grab that raw signal. There's a little, let me just turn this off for a second here. When I say turn that off, if I grab that there, that will give me the raw signal. By the way, that will send me a little image, FYI. All right, so let me just go back and answer some questions. 50 milligrams of the solid, suspended in 1 ml of the buffer, vortex it. You just saw me do a demo on that kind of sample. The result you'll get is milligrams per gram, and that means how many milligrams of caffeine in 1 gram of that sample. Now we can add ppm also to the app. At the moment, if you notice, when I was doing the Chilli, we actually had 2 units. We had micromolar and Scoville heat units. On the caffeine at the moment, we just have milligrams per gram. We could put ppm in there, but I want to kind of figure out almost what people really want. So I don't want to make a premature decision on that, but at the moment it's milligrams per gram. And in fact, I didn't do it. No, I did do it. I just want to answer this particular question, which is, at the moment, somebody's doing some testing. They're doing 1 in 20 dilution. It's not a big matter, by the way, but if you think of this as putting 50 milligrams in 1 ml of buffer, that's actually the way to think about it. What's happened here, and it's no criticism of these people, what they've done is they've actually sampled essentially tea. They've sampled tea, and then they've done the 1 in 20 dilution. So really, their answers come out at 47.3 milligrams per gram, which sounds fine on the face of it, but there is something up here, and the something that's up is this is really diluted 15 times. So that would suggest, and I don't want to be ridiculous on this, but that would suggest something like 15 times 47 is about 750 milligrams per gram. And I know the tea is not there, but that's why it's important for me to see the raw signal, because I'm looking at the raw signal to understand, what's happening. Because I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this, but then I bring up this because I want to see what this looks like. If it's all flat like this, it may be we can't dilute that too much. If it's nice and peaked like this, then we're onto it, and we can see the caffeine. What I suspect is that this is quite diluted, and there's some sort of background molecule that is raised what we call the baseline, but is not caffeine. So it's not a criticism of the users, but I would ask you to maybe try the experiment and don't do too many because you'll get ahead of us. 50 milligrams of tea leaves in 1 ml of buffer. Vortex it if you can. I appreciate you may not have the vortex at the moment. I always use a vortexer in many of the demos online. That will extract, and then you'll get the milligrams per gram. But it's the raw signal that will really help me understand what's happening, and this is why we've set up the FoodSense Generation 4 the way we set it up. So many products, including this glucose meter, for example, will give you a number, but of course there's no way to question that number. But with the FoodSense Generation 4 you can question it, because you can actually see the raw signal. I'm not trying to make everyone an analytical scientist or an electroanalytical scientist. I just do it because in the food and beverage industry, it's actually easier to make a glucose strip because blood is less variable. But green tea, black tea, not that I'm an expert on teas, but coffees, etc. These are complex samples, and so sometimes we need to see the raw signal to really understand what is actually going on in there. Now they've also got a beverage and an energy drink signal as well. Again, I'm not going to troubleshoot that now because I haven't tested these energy drinks myself. Though if I see the raw signal, and if I see the raw signal is flat, it tells me one thing, and if I see this peak for caffeine, that definitely tells me something else as well. It tells me that there's caffeine in there, and we can sort of deal with it. I've slightly mislabeled this, but I just want to kind of say that at ZP we do have a good attitude towards support. This person's not yet a client. This is not the person, by the way. This is one of our team, but somebody who's been asking some nice questions coming in from Taiwan has been struggling a little bit with the English, and so what we've done is made a bilingual video sort of demonstrating in English and then my colleague translating in Chinese in real time. So I think that's just a reflection of the efforts we will go to help our users of FoodSense Generation 4. So questions this week. Please, if you've just received your FoodSense Generation 4 and you've never heard of a premium account, you're probably not on a premium account, we'd like to get you upgraded. You are putting the sample on the right place, and just so people don't think, it definitely does say in the manual, which I've got here, where to put the sample, but I've also done a couple of demos for you here today, so hopefully you can see where to put the sample. Question number 3, cost of chili testing. It was, for the one example I did today, it was €3.97 per test. Just to go from milligrams to parts per million, you just times by 1,000. But in that particular tea case, you would actually the answer that you got was something around 45 milligrams per gram, which suggests 45 milligrams per gram in the original sample. But because you'd actually diluted it before you did the test by another 15x, that was more like 750, which I know is wrong. But if I see the raw signal, I can then take an intelligent, I can basically figure it out, let's say, and sort that out. I've said here question number 5, bilingual support. So just a kind of example of, if somebody's struggling with English, not struggling with English, but your English is not your first language, then we can try and help in those scenarios as well. But if you do have any questions regarding FoodSense Generation 4 and the testing of interesting molecules like capsaicin and what do I call it? Caffeine, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, thanks very much.